Edward, how do you find China's relationship with the Middle East and indeed Africa?
China has taken a position where, it looks at the world with like a chessboard, right? With its own perspective. That perspective may or may not be aligned with the Western, and particularly the US perspective, or certainly not necessarily aligned with the Russian perspective. For a very long time, as you know, Africa was a major focus for the Chinese foreign policy. Africa is a source of resources for China, infrastructure development, construction, as well as some of the consumer goods, including mobile phones and so on, right? So the relationship with Africa is a big deal for the Chinese. The Middle East is pretty complicated. There are places where it's politically reasonably stable, but there are also places that are politically extremely unstable. So I think what the Chinese is actually trying to identify where the areas that the Chinese can sort of work closer with and therefore have more allies, and where the areas that Chinese should stay out. The Chinese will be very careful about the Middle East, but still nonetheless very strategic, because in a way the Middle East, and to the extent Africa as well, is part of this one belt, one road that China defines on a broad basis, right? So a large part of the Middle East is actually along the land Silk Road and as well as the maritime Silk Road. So by definition, they will be part of the AIIB or the One Belt One Road. Africa and the Middle East is going to be a big part of the Chinese chessboard.
So looking forward, do you think then that China sees more emerging markets have more potential than perhaps the established Western markets?
Again, it depends on the kind of products that one talk about. But for someone like Huawei, they have done a very good job in the so-called emerging market, including Europe here already, Western Europe. In a way, the last sort of white space for them is the US. At the same time, for us, some automotive makers, for them to jump all the way to, Western European core markets or the US markets and have products that the consumer would like, is probably somewhat of a stretch for many of them. Whereas if they come to Africa or other parts of Asia, they may have a good chance, because the branding, the pricing, and so on, very different. So it really depends on what industry, what product we talk about.